Yeah, what we did in the last few days is with 30 Indian coaches. First of all, spoke about football in general, because if you want to periodize football, then first you have to understand what football is all about before you can actually periodize it. So we spoke about football in a very objective and universal way, because what you often see is that people talk and discuss about football in a very subjective way, based on opinions and experiences, and then the discussion often goes all over the place and doesn't result in a real outcome. So the first thing we did was analyze and discuss football in an objective way, because fundamentally football in India and Holland, the country where I'm coming from, fundamentally we are playing the same sport. I was very surprised with all the interactions, because sometimes when you do a course it's one-way traffic with coaches only listening and absorbing the information. But this time there was a lot of interaction, a lot of questions, which made it also very interesting for me, because that way I was able to get a feel and an understanding of football in this Indian culture. So it was also very interesting for me. And I was very surprised, like I said, about the open and hungry attitude of the Indian coaches. Well, the future of Indian football obviously depends on the steps that people are going to take in the near future. But if they develop a good infrastructure and good coaches, then based on the massive population in this country, there must be a very bright future, because if you have more than 1 billion people in a country, then one way or the other there must be a lot of football talent. Well, hopefully it will have a very positive impact, because one of the important things when you want to develop football in a country is that the children have role models and that they have an objective to achieve. And if the children in India see 17-year-old players, the best 17-year-old players in the world, in action in their own country, then it feels like it's very close to their own doorsteps, and it is more within their own reach than just watching the best players of the world playing on television, because then the distance is much further. So hopefully the World Cup Under-17 of India will have a very inspiring influence on the children in India. Yeah, well, that is the traditional mistake that a lot of people make all around the world. They think that football is about running and sprinting, etc. But if you analyze football, then the first and most important thing of football is to make 11 players work together. Because no matter how fast you run and no matter how fast you are, if you have miscommunications with your teammates, you will lose the ball and you will end up defending rather than attacking. So the most important thing is to develop tactical teachers, tactical coaches who make Indian players work together. And then the next step is that when players work together really well, then the individual players should make very good decisions. In other words, you have to make or develop creative players. And then when you make very good decisions, at the end of the day, you have to execute those decisions. And you can do that when you are running or sprinting or jumping or shooting. But the actual execution is only the last part of a football action. The communication between players and the individual decision making of players is much more important than the fitness part. Well, the most important thing for young coaches is to understand that you should approach the game, first of all, in an objective way and not in a subjective way, because if you approach football subjectively, you end up being copying the flavor of the month and copying the champion. So approach football in an objective way. And secondly, it's very important for young coaches to find good role models. People who also approach the game in an objective way and who have already proven themselves. Because as a young coach, if you have a good role model, then that is a very important component. Just like children copying their parents, then young coaches can copy their role model. Well, I'm impressed with the work that Ultrasporting has done here in Mumbai, because there were some challenges to organize this event, but at the end of the day we can only draw one conclusion, that it was very successful. And so in combination with the good atmosphere with the delegates, I think those two things together make me feel that there is a lot of potential for future events with Ultrasport, the World Football Academy and Indian coaches.